Hello everyone. This is the discussion part 2 of the flowers, fruits, and seeds. Specifically, this lecture will tackle about fruits, the seeds, and a little bit of embryology. The fruit. Basically, a fruit is defined as a ripened ovary, which encloses the seeds. There are so many kinds of fruits depending on the life strategy of a plant. A fruit may be fleshy, dry, or in between. A fruit may contain one seed to numerous. It also varies in color, texture, shape, taste, etc. For human beings and other animals, the fruit provides nutritious food, at least for the edible ones. The fruits are rich in vitamins, minerals, and other plant phytochemicals. For the plant, the fruit primarily evolved primarily evolved as a dispersion strategy. Some plants developed alluring and irresistible fruits so that many animals may feed on it, and afterwards, these animals will carry the seeds and disperses them to farther areas. The fruit is one of the biggest sinks of a plant. The plant body invests much of its energy in developing its fruits. Presented in this slide are fig fruits. Mostly, fig is eaten by birds and bats. This relationship between the plant and the feeder animal paved for an extensive distribution of figs. The genus is almost cosmopolitan across tropical areas. Parts of a fruit. There are three main parts of a typical fruit: epicarp, mesocarp, and endocarp. The three parts all combined refers to the pericarp. Deep within the fruit of the plant is the seed, containing the embryo, endosperm, and the protective seed coat covering. The most external part of the fruit is the exocarp, while the innermost part is the endocarp. The fruit's flesh, most of the time, refers to the mesocarp. Moreover, fruits have classification also. Shown in this slide is a schematic diagram delineating the different fruit classifications. So we start with simple, going to aggregate, and the composite fruit. For the simple fruits, these fruits always develop from a single ovary containing one or more carpels and may or may not include additional modified accessory floral or perianth structures. Next, we have the aggregate fruits, a fruit formed from several carpels derived from the same flower. And then lastly, the composite or multiple fruits. It's a type of fruit that develops from an inflorescence rather than from a single flower. Moreover, a simple fruit can be further categorized as either dry or succulent or fleshy. Under the dry fruit, it can be further classified as dehiscent or capsular. This is a fruit that cracks open when it reaches full maturity. Example are those of the legumes. We also have indehiscent or aquineal. These are fruits that does not crack open when it reaches maturity. Example are here nut, samara, achin, caryopsis. Okay, these are your grains. And then lastly, you have the schizocarp or the splitting fruits. So basically, it is defined as a fruit that splits into single seeded parts. Okay, and then the next classification are the succulent or the fleshy ones. So it can be a drupe. So a drupe is a fleshy fruit with thin skin and a central stone containing the seed. Okay. The next one is a berry. It's a fruit that is fleshy all throughout. So anything or any fruit that is fleshy all throughout will fall under the category of a berry, right? Next, we have the pepo, any fleshy watery fruit of the melon or the cucumber family. And most of the time, the fruits under the pepo classification have a leathery rind or the exocarp is shiny. Then next, we have Hesperidium, a fruit of the citrus family, which is characterized by fruit pulps and visible locules or compartmentalization. Next, we have a pome, a fruit consisting of a fleshy enlarged receptacle and a tough central core containing seeds, and other more specific classifications under the succulent category. Let's hop on to the next slide for some examples. So a pea fruit, for example, is a dehiscent fruit. Okay, when it reaches maturity, side, okay, this side will crack open to release the seeds. It's very common under the pea family. Next, you have your raspberry. It's an aggregate fruit. Okay. Next is your pineapple. It's a multiple fruit. And then your apple is a pome. Okay. So this thing that you are seeing, okay, this is actually the receptacle. The receptacle enlarges, and that's the thing that you're eating for the apple. Here are more examples of fruit. So for the dry dehiscent ones, we have here a follicle, okay, there. Legume, silicula, lumentum. The fruit of the poppy, the opium plant, is a capsule, okay, porous capsule to be exact. And then loculicidal capsule, meaning it has other compartmentalization and opens into numerous slits, okay, and then other forms of dry dehiscent capsules. For fleshy ones, we have here a berry, okay, tomato. Tomato is a berry because as per definition, a berry is a fruit that is fleshy all throughout, and that applies to your tomato, okay. Your mango is a drupe. Your cucumber is a peppo. Your orange, since it's a citrus plant, it's Hesperidium. Okay, you can see here the pulp area, and then the small thin white areas, those are compartmentalizations. Again, pome, apple, and then a specific type of fruit, balosta, for your pomegranate. Okay, and then more examples. We've been talking about compartmentalization, okay? So we hop on to the topic of placentation. Well, placentation refers to the attachment of ovules inside the ovary. So it can be marginal, meaning literally marginally attached, or an axile, which is attached to the axis, okay? Or from the axile category, it can be free central, which resemble that of the axile, but the column is not connected by partitions. We also have the parietal. The edges of the carpels are fused together, okay, here. And then the basal, okay. The ovule is attached on the axis of the pedicel. So this is the attachment point of the pedicel. So your ovule is directly attached to that axis. So those are the different placentation types. In your laboratory, try to check on the different placentations of your fruit samples. Seed. The seed is the embryonic plant. It consists of a miniature underdeveloped plant. Again, seeds may vary depending on size, color, texture, shape, etc. If we can recall in the earlier slide about double fertilization, the seed is the product when the fertilization successfully took place. Okay, so you have to remember the discussion, earlier discussion about double fertilization. In terms of the two largest clades of plants, the monocot and dicot, they can be easily differentiated by the number of cotyledons. Okay, for the monocot, only one cotyledon is available, while for the dicot, you have two cotyledons available. However, in some resources, they may refer to dicot, the prefix eu, okay, which denotes the true dicots, meaning plants that do really have a two cotyledon versus that monocot versus that one cotyledon from your monocot. Okay, because if you can recall, there are other classifications of the plant, either by not directly seeing the seed, okay, which is about the venation of your plant, such that for monocot they have parallel venation, while for your dicot they have a netted venation. But there are some monocotyledonous plants that do have a little bit of a netted venation. So it's best to refer to the number of cotyledons available to that plant for you to confidently refer to either place it as a monocot or a dicot. When we dissect the seed, okay, we can see different specialized parts. Initially, the outermost protective covering of the seed is known as the seed coat. The hilum is also visible in most seeds. Okay, this one. The hilum is sometimes referred to as the seed scar, a remnant of the point of attachment of the ovule. Dissecting further, we can see the very thick endosperm which nourishes the young embryonic plant, especially during germination. There are there is also the hypocotyl, which is the embryonic stem, the epicotyl, a region above the cotyledons, the radicle, the first root of the plant, and of course, the cotyledons or your embryonic leaf. Most of the seeds don't usually germinate or pop out after its cycle of being kept in a long period of time inside the fruit. Sometimes it may remain in dormancy. Dormancy is an important characteristic of seeds so as to ensure viability of proliferation only when environmental conditions are met. Seed dormancy may range to days, weeks, months, or even years, depending to the species. In terms of propensity to be kept in dormancy for a span of time, seeds can be a recalcitrant or an orthodox. When we refer to recalcitrant seeds, these seeds do not tolerate drying and are short-lived. Example, mango, tomato, cocoa, etc. While for your orthodox seeds, these seeds can tolerate maturation drying and can be viable for years. For example, guava, cashew, chili, etc. In terms of seed banking strategy, it is best to invest in banking orthodox seeds because they can last for a few years rather than of those recalcitrant ones. But of course, and still, the recalcitrant seeds are agriculturally important crops. Thus, you have to really strategize with the seed banking approach so as that these recalcitrant seeds may still remain viable. Okay? If all environmental prerequisites are successfully achieved, seed germination is initiated. And there are two kinds of germination process: epigeial or hypogeial seed germination. For the epigeial seed germination, in dicots in which the cotyledons come above the soil surface. In this type, the hypocotyl elongates and raises the cotyledons above the ground surface, thus it is called epigeous or epigeial germination. For the hypogeial germination, it implies that the cotyledons stay below ground. The epicotyl, part of the stem above the cotyledon, grows while the hypocotyl, part of the stem below the cotyledon remains the same in length. In this way, the epicotyl pushes the plumule above the ground. This slide is already elaborated previously, but as a recap, plants can reproduce either sexually or asexually. So with this slide, it's already a recap of gametogenesis previously elaborated. Okay? And of course, double fertilization, pollination process, maybe the thing that we should always remember in this topic is the entire process of double fertilization, starting from where the pollen attaches to the stigma, recognition process, the initiation of the pollen tube until such time that the pollen releases the sperm until it reaches the ovules and then finds its way towards fertilizing the polar nuclei and of course the egg. Alright, so this will be the last slide, but I think this should have been tackled earlier, especially during the discussion about the seed, but here it is. Just an added knowledge about how the embryonic plant develops. This domain of knowledge is discussed under plant embryology. Let's just have a rundown of the different steps, starting off from the zygote, okay? The one-celled embryo proper. The zygote has undergone a transverse cell division during this stage, producing a smaller apical cell and a larger basal cell. Okay? Apical cell and then the basal cell. The apical cell produces the embryo proper, and the basal cell develops into the suspensor and hypophysis. Hypophysis is a region between the suspensor and the embryo. Afterwards, cell division will proceed, producing a quadrant and then going towards an octet embryo stage. Okay? The globular stage here has pronounced basal cell. In this stage also that the procambium becomes visible as elongated cells at the center of the embryo. Then we go to the triangular stage, specifically just talking about an enlarged globular stage, but the apical area is a little bit triangular as it forms the heart shape, okay, where cotyledonary lobes, which is this, continues to enlarge, making the change to bilateral symmetry more obvious, okay, bilateral symmetry. The cotyledons become more visible in the torpedo stage because there is already an enlargement of the cotyledonary lobes. Okay? The ram becomes more pronounced, the root apical meristem. And then lastly, mature embryo stage, the cotyledons grow recurved and the primary meristems become more produced. Okay? The epidermis is also well developed in the mature embryo stage. And this mature embryo is enclosed within the seed and it's protected by a seed coat. Okay, so I guess that's it. Thank you.